What's up, nerds? So I watched the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and I'm going to do my breakdown and my commentary and everything on it. But I have to just tell you right now, this episode, we went back to Rygel 7, and from the pilot episode of the original series. And I've got some thoughts, but they're not deep, just like this freaking episode. So let's get into this breakdown, and then I'll wrap it all up with my thoughts at the very end and during. Okay, here we go. Among the Lotus Eaters opens with Captain Pike preparing a delicious-looking pasta dish with his mother's sauce recipe, in anticipation of a cozy night in with his on and off again romantic partner, Captain Batel. Their two ships are working together to map a binary star system, and while it's quiet, they try to sneak in some personal time with each other. Almost immediately, their date night is interrupted by various inquiries from both their crews, jerks, but it's nothing urgent, so they settle in. She's brought him a gift from an archaeological dig, a token to bring lost sailors home, and he's ready to show her his appreciation when they're interrupted again by a call from the Admiral for Patel. All these people are bothering Pike and Patel, and they're just trying to get their bound chicka wow wow on. And I'm all like, can these people just get laid? Like, make your own decisions, people. Like, that's what you're for. It's micromanaging. Like, make your decisions. Like, come on. You don't need them to hold your hand for every single thing going down. Like, come on. It seems like quite some time later, she ends the call and attempts to rush through their date after getting bad news. Because she didn't go hard enough against Pike and Una during the trial, she lost out on promotion to Commodore. Pike worries that their relationship isn't worth the trouble because he feels like he's hurting her career and suggests that they pull back a bit, effectively doubling down on Batel's absolutely terrible evening. While the terms of their seemingly open relationship haven't been exactly defined on screen, not being on the same page about it easily throws a wrench in their evening. She leaves without finishing her dinner, rude, and Pike gets a call from the bridge regarding sensitive information about Rygel 7. That conversation with that Admiral took way too freaking long, I can tell you right now, to tell her she didn't get the job. Like, I was like, I would have just like, hey, you didn't get the job, sorry, not for you this time, and then it would have been like, a 5-minute call tops. And I will just have to say, her leaving without finishing that dinner was ridiculous. I would have ate that. I would have picked up right before I left. In Pike's ready room, Una briefs the captain as well as La'an, Mabinga, and Ortegas on the mission ahead. 5 years prior, Pike, Una, and Spock came here to survey an M-class planet, but things went south quickly, with 3 crew members dying, resulting in Pike and Spock needing an emergency evacuation. Recently, Starfleet received images from the planet of the Delta shape of the logo used on comm badges and other gears cut into the shrubbery of the palace garden, making it clear that Pike and Spock did not escape the pre-war planet without impacting it, essentially violating the Prime Directive by accident. They need to land on the planet and correct the cultural contamination they caused with that first visit. Pike implies in very few words that the team he's assembled for this mission was chosen for their combat skills. So I have to be honest with you, I've only seen the pilot episode once, or maybe I didn't see it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't remember how many people died on that. But I remember the Rygel 7 people. Maybe I've just seen photos of it. I can't remember off the top of my head because I've only seen the original series once, but they were all like those like Roman, like those like Viking looking kind of dudes or whatever. After the briefing ends, Una lingers behind to talk to Pike. He seems distant, fiddling with the token that Batel gave him before their date went sideways. She presses him slightly about why Batel's ship left in such a hurry, and he reveals that they decided to take a break. Una sees straight through him and points out that he always panics when someone gets too close, essentially self-sabotaging all of his romantic relationships before he can get hurt. While they agree that it doesn't make sense for him to wreck his relationship with Batel, they've got bigger fish to fry with the mission to Rygel 7. Pike admits that he still thinks about what went wrong in that first time, wondering what he could have done differently to keep his crew alive. She offers to tell Starfleet that they can rescue themselves from this mission, but Pike is determined to clean up his mess that he blames himself for. A small piece of me just wants to be like, you know what, Una, maybe you need to mind your own freaking business and stay in your lane. But also, I just want to go her being like, you always push people away when they get too close so you don't get hurt. And I'm like, oh my God, we've seen this same thing happen in like every single show since the dawn of time. Maybe get a new freaking line here. Ortega is overjoyed to be going on her first away mission aboard the Enterprise, making a pilot's log about how excited she is to not only be flying the shuttle down, but to be on the away party. Dressed in planet-appropriate clothing to help them blend in, she meets up with La'an and M'Benga on their way to the shuttle bay. When they're stopped by Spock, he explains to the captain that the debris field around the planet is shifting, meaning that they'll need their best pilot aboard the Enterprise, and Ortega must stay behind. Pike decides to fly the shuttle down himself, and while Ortega's knows it's the right call, she can't help but be a little resentful of Spock for delivering the information. Look at that goofy ass haircut. It's like a bowl cut, but like literally just like a bowl cut. I get how Ortega was upset. She looked ridiculous in that outfit, and her hair looked ridiculous. But as you could see, my reaction. But I think that bummer for her, but it's a good thing that she was there for the end. You'll get why. To reach the settlement undetected, Pike has to land the shuttle 20 kilometers away. And to make matters more complicated, they can't bring phasers or comm badges and risk further contamination of the planet's burgeoning society. Luckily, they have their subdermal universal translators, but otherwise, they're on their own. As they exit the shuttlecraft, La'an suffers from a serious bout of a violent ringing in her ears that makes her feel confused and disorientated. Not realizing that they've already traveled 6 hours away from where they landed, it's more dangerous to turn back now than to keep moving forward. So La'an brushes it off, and M'Benga hopes that it's not a sign of anything more serious. Yeah, as soon as I would have been like, we need to go back, because they were all like, it's going to be 6 hours to get back to the shuttle, and it's going to be freezing temperatures at night. And I've been like, yeah, we need to go back to the shuttle and get the hell off this planet, like right now, like not an option. Outside the palace, La'an surveys the area and notes that the Starfleet Delta is also forged into the gates. They decide that the best course of action is to talk to the people who live outside the castle, because they're more likely to talk without their guard up. But if that fails, they'll have to slip inside the palace. La'an is hit with another wave of the ringing, and Pike suggests that they lie low and head back to the shuttle first thing in the morning. However, that's not a viable option, as they realize that the guards surrounding the palace are armed with phaser rifles. Pike explains that when they ordered their emergency evacuation, Spock had been bleeding out, and he hadn't been keeping an eye on where the rest of their gear was in the haste to save his life and not lose a fourth crew member. M'Benga joins them with 6 guards in tow, and while La'an is ready to fight, Pike makes an attempt at diplomacy first. However, the guard reveals that he already knows they're from Starfleet. Yeah, I love how, like, his look on his face when he's all like, we know you're Starfleet, and he's like, ah, shit. M'Benga suffers from his own wave of the ear ringing as the guards take them into the castle, and they're greeted by the crew member that Pike believed died during their first mission here. Pike is overjoyed to find Zach still alive, but there's a menacing tone in Zach's words, making it clear that he's not exactly happy to have been abandoned on this harsh Stone Age planet. He goes by High Lord Zacharias on this planet, and though Pike wants to fix his mistake, Zach tells him it's too little too late. Pike assumes that Zach put the Delta symbol in the garden as a message, but the former Yaleman says that the people here just adopted it as his symbol, and he has every intention to tear it down at the earliest opportunity. The captain attempts to emphasize with Zach over how difficult it must have been for him to be here over the last 5 years, But it's far worse than he realizes. The source of the ringing in La'an and Mabinga's ears is the radiation from a meteor that struck the planet's surface years ago. It makes it difficult to think and ultimately makes you forget who you are. Pike tries one more time to bargain with Zach, but he's convinced that there's no going back for him after what he's done on this planet, arming the guards with Starfleet weapons and installing himself as their king. While Pike insists that the Enterprise will come back for them, Zach takes no small joy in subjecting Pike to the same suffering he went through in his abandonment, explaining that within a day, no one will remember they're even there. Outside in a cage, Pike and Mabinga try to piece together a solution, struggling through serious brain fog. La'an attacks Pike when he approaches her because she doesn't remember who he is. In fact, none of them can even remember why they are on the planet. This was a fun twist that one of the dudes survived the original contact. I liked it, that part of it. Yeah. The same ringing that the officers on the planet are suffering from extends up to the ship, first causing Uhura to become disorientated, having no memory of the past 2 hours on the bridge. Commander Una insists that she go to sickbay and see what's going on, and sends Ortegas with the young comms officer, taking over flying through the debris field herself. Uhura explains her symptoms to Nurse Chapel, and the scans of Uhura's brain reveal that something much more concerning than a headache is plaguing her. Chapel and Ortegas attempt to deduce what the source of the problem might be, saying that it shouldn't be a problem as long as it's just happening to Uhura. Like clockwork, Spock calls over comms saying he's sending in 6 more crew members suffering from acute memory loss. Yeah, I knew that this was going to happen, like, to the ship or whatever, because I'm all like, well, something's got to happen up on the ship, and they just started losing their memory, too. Back on the ship, Chapel explains what's happening to everyone to Uno when the commander is hit with the wave of the ringing. She delivers the same information that Luke told Pike. They can remember their emotions and instincts, but everything beyond that is being blocked by the radiation. Pike comes in and insists that they each keep a copy of their information to remind themselves of who they are. They realize that they need to leave orbit in order to get their memories back, but they can't leave the away team behind. Spock returns to the bridge and insists that Ortegas fly them into the debris field to block out some of the radiation. Spock and Ortega's attempt to lessen the radiation backfires drastically as they're both hit with a wave of the ringing and extreme confusion over everything from who they are to how to read their data pads. Ortegas can recall that they were trying to make things better and that she's angry at Spock, but that's where her memories stop. The rest of the crew is wandering around confused as Ortegas gets the computer to lead her to her quarters. When the debris field starts to impact the ship, Ortegas begs for someone to make it stop before realizing she is, in fact, the one person who can make it stop. This was okay when she gets it all together. It wasn't funny at all. I think that they were trying to make it funny and it was just kind of annoying, The next morning on the planet, the away party is granted some grace by a man named Luke, who lives outside the palace. He explains their roles are defined by the colors that they wear and promises to explain later why he's able to understand the basic functions of this society. While they go to work in the stone quarry, the man explains that each night they go through the forgetting. He says they don't lose the deeply known things like walking and talking, but memories and the things that make them who they are disappear. He offers to help them with their next forgetting so they don't wake up lost and afraid. It's not like this for everyone, though. The people in the palace are able to retain their memories each night. Despite his attempts to add comfort, Pike and La'an are certain that they aren't supposed to be here, and neither is Mabinga. Pike has a vague memory of the pendant that Batel gave him, and Luke encourages him to trust his emotions more than his fleeting memories. The Luke guy, his whole thing was just really kind of annoying. He's all just go with it, be dumb, I like pizza and everything. And I'm just I remember everything by the tattoos on my arms. And you're like, okay, from this weird, testicle looking thing. I was like, this is just weird. Despite Luke's insistence that they just go with the flow, La'an and Pike start a fight with the two guards keeping watch over their work area. They incapacitate the guards, but not without La'an getting stabbed in the process. Mbinga instinctively knows how to treat her wound, but they have to flee back to Luke's place to do more than wrap her in a temporary bandage. Mbinga believes he can save La'an, but he needs his memories back to properly treat her. Luke has already written her off and tells them to just let her go with peace. But La'an is not exactly jazzed about the prospect of dying. While Mbinga tries to keep taking care of her, Luke says that at least when she's dead, they won't have to carry the pain of her loss because they'll just forget her. A totem in the center of his room explains enough to keep Luke and the other workers in line, but it doesn't tell Pike enough to satisfy him. His determination to save La'an stirs a change of heart in Luke, and he agrees to go with them back to the castle to get their memories back. A significant portion of the emotional weight rests on Luke's shoulders as he says that he'll watch after La'an, but he doesn't want Pike and Mbinga to retrieve his memories. He explains that he still carries the weight of his grief, having deduced that he likely lost the people he loves. And he's certain that remembering the specifics won't make the burden any lighter. It conflicts slightly with what he had previously said about Pike and Mbinga being able to forget the pain of losing La'an. But anyways, he insists that part of Pike's motivation to get his memories back is linked to the pendant he wears because it reminds him of someone he loves. But Pike still can't recall who gave it to him. Mbinga gets shot as he and Pike attempt to storm the palace. He can't keep going, so he decides to defend the entrance while Pike retrieves their memories. Inside, Pike faces off against Zack, and he lets himself be guided by his baser emotions, the leading of which is certainly anger. Allowing himself to attack the young, self-appointed king, admitting defeat in his cowardice, Zack points Pike towards what he has left of the Starfleet equipment in a box where he pretends to keep everyone's memories. He explains that the whole castle and the helmets on the guards' heads are made of an ore that protects them from the radiation, and everything else is a myth to keep the working class submissive. When Pike doesn't believe him, Zack laughs in his face and says it's just like Pike to start a revolution. In his frustration, he nearly kills the former crew member, but his memories return just in time. Pike knows that who he is at his core hasn't changed. He values the lives of his crew, including Zack's, above everything. Mbinga is able to heal La'an with the dermal regenerator from the box of Starfleet equipment. Having been through a lot together, the two warriors agree that it can be nice to not have to carry the burden of the past for a little while. But ultimately, some memories are worth the pain of others. Meanwhile, Luke decided to stay inside long enough to remember his family, and he takes back what he had said to Pike before, admitting that the little things about your life matter. Pike is finally able to remember Batel, realizing that he needs to apologize to her after he's learned the importance of living in the moment. The messaging gets a little muddled here and everything. I think that it's like that as the instinct to live in the now and forget the past was like part of the myth designed to create, this class divide. However, I think that Pike, maybe he needs to stop worrying about the future so he can enjoy the present, When everyone returns to the Enterprise, Ortegas wraps up her pilot's log, explaining how they were able to get their memories back and how she and Spock resolved their temporary beef. With the Prime Directive already thoroughly smashed to bits with regard to their actions on this planet, Pike decides that they're within their bounds to yank the meteor off the planet's surface and throw it back into the atmosphere so that the people no longer have to lose their memories. And again, I was annoyed that they used Spock as like this. He's a big dummy. Look at that Spock being all stupid and everything again. Bad Spock and everything. Let's make him the butt of the joke. And it's like, I don't care for that at all. And I've mentioned this before. Later, Pike makes sure that Batel's ship is a part of the prison transfer for Zach so that he can apologize to her. He explains that he was wrong to end their still undefined relationship and asks for her forgiveness. Though hesitant at first, she kisses him and says they can keep playing it by ear the way they have been. Nothing really changes about the nature of their relationship, and they've essentially ended up right back where they started within the open. And that's the end of the episode, you guys. And I have to be honest, I really just don't care if these two get together at all. Like, I just don't care about their love story. Because I just don't, this episode was really boring. Man, was it boring. Like, I was just like, oh my goodness, can we please get through this episode? I do not want to be here anymore. And, you know, whatever. It is what it is, but I just don't care. So yeah, that's my breakdown. I'm sorry, I've already taken up too much of your time, but the episode was no fun for me. It was boring. I didn't care for it. I didn't like returning back to Rygel 7. I just didn't care. And I just have a feeling this is what this season is going to be. Just boring, boring, boring. So, but tell me, what did you guys think about this episode? Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? What was your favorite part? Who was your favorite character? Did you think it was boring like me? Or did you honestly like think it was exciting and exhilarating and all that fun stuff? But tell me what you think. And as always, if you like what I do here and you enjoy independent content here on YouTube, please consider subscribing to my channel. YouTube is always changing up their algorithm, and small channels like mine, we just keep getting shoved to the back of the line. So please ask that you like, share, and subscribe, and I thank you in advance. Go ahead and leave all your comments in that section down below. If you like this video, go and hit that like button. You know I won't mind. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys on my next Star Trek Strange New Worlds video. You guys have a good day. Live long and prosper. Bye.